Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 69 of the Print on Demand Cast. As always, joining me, Travis Ross. Travis, how are you surviving in this, which is going to be the craziest week of Q4 just before Christmas, because everyone thinks that if they order now, it's guaranteed. Or as The Rock used to say as a wrestler, guaranteed to make it to their house by Christmas. So there is a lot going on. How are you surviving? I know we talked a little bit before we pressed record about your day, but let the people know listening, how was your Monday?
It was a crazy day. Yeah, we're recording this Monday, December 13th. And this Monday, that is like kind of 2 weeks away, you know, the Monday that hits like after the 10th, the first Monday that hits after the first, like the 10th of December is always the biggest Monday, especially if you haven't worked, you know, over the weekend. Some people, you know, they just continue to work Saturday and Sunday, but our orders were accumulating all weekend. And so, yeah, we walked into a crap ton of orders. If that's, you know, if that's actually a word, I don't know. I just made it a word, but there were a crap ton of orders this morning. We're actually up. I was looking at the numbers, and we're up 30% on the year for just our merchant fulfilled compared to last year. And even the year before, I was looking at that too, when we were doing seller fulfilled prime. That was a really busy time, but we're still up even from that. Plus we have, you know, other clients that are doing our volume and more. So it was an absolute crazy day today.
Was it a madhouse?
Yeah, it was definitely a madhouse. I actually, you know, it's almost like 8 o'clock right now and I'm still at the office. I was actually still printing, you know, I was working, you know, cause you're working at the shop. You had to drive home. You had to do dinner for your wife and all that. And so I was just like, well, I'll take the extra time. I'll just, you know, print some more stuff for tomorrow so we can kind of have a head start. But it's this is a crazy week. I know you guys are having a pretty crazy week over there too. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It is a season. I was telling you before we press record that our guy who does all of our sublimation, you know, he's a high school kid. He does homeschool, so he comes in about 11 every day. But today he showed up at 9:30 and he's like, "You guys told me to come early." And I said, "Would you like to guess how many pages you have to do today?" And when I say pages, for those listening, we print off order summaries, a little bit different than what Travis does in his system, I think, at least. But we print off the order summaries, and there's probably 5 to 6 orders a page on these order summaries, right? So his eyes just got really big, and he was like, "Please tell me it's not more than 15." And I was like, "Double it, add 5. That's a day. 35 pages." So the whole day I kept just checking it. "Blake, you good? You can do this. We believe in you. Blake, are you good?" Because if you've done sublimation and mugs, it is kind of like a hurry up and wait process sometimes, because you have to like get everything ready and wrap them and put them in the oven, wait for them to get down to wrap wrap the next batch or round of mugs or whatever. So, but aside from that, both printers were firing. The 2100, the 3070. We had shipping people starting from 9:30 till they were there. They were there till like 6:30 tonight, just shipping everything out. Because we had some shifts over the weekend, getting stuff ready to go, keeping up with the volume. It is crazy, and I know we talk about this every year, but it is. You forget how crazy it is.
You do,
yeah. And I can't express how thankful I am now to be at a point where we have a staff of people, who are doing their job and taking on those roles. Because if it was still Jason and I and Theron with this kind of volume, I wouldn't be here talking to you, and I don't know that I'm here for the next episodes either. I'd either be in a psych ward or in a casket, because it would be a trying time for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, man. But things are crazy, but it's always a good thing. It's always a good thing, and it's good to carve out some time and take a second to record a new episode for all of our it's weird for me to say fans. All of our listeners.
That's okay. You know what, Josiah? I'm one of your fans, so you can at least say fan.
Likewise.
Whether or not the rest of the people,
I know I have at least one.
yeah, you have at least one, so you're good. I was just going to say, it was interesting. I was listening to another podcast while I was cooking some mugs. We've had him on the show. Adam Schneider has a podcast, and I was listening to his, and he does. He doesn't do his own fulfillment for the most part. I think he does some presses. He does some like FBA stuff. He just, and then like maybe a return or, hey, I got a broken mug. And so he sends it out to him, but he's not doing his own production. He's sending it all off to Gear Bubble. I was listening to his podcast, and he recorded it, I don't know, the last couple days or something. I don't know. And he was saying something like, it's so weird. I have so much time right now. And he was talking about how a month ago, he was like so busy and just super, super, getting ready. But it's kind of interesting, the difference in somebody who's doing their own production versus somebody who is outsourcing that, and the different seasons that we go through. I just thought that was really interesting, because I think a lot of our listeners are probably doing that. A lot of our listeners, they put in their Q4 at the beginning of Q4 to get ready for this crazy selling time. And they're listening to us and going, oh, you poor, poor men.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, get ready for it. Because if this is something that you're going to grow and maybe eventually bring production in-house, even with something like coffee mugs, those just sell like crazy. They're the perfect gift item for Christmas. So just prepare yourselves, and when you're in the thick of it, when that time comes, you'll remember the time that Travis and Josiah were lamenting for what seems like the last 5 episodes about the wild Q4. I've told Travis that once it's all over, we should have a decompress episode where we just kind of get together, pour some whiskey, and tell some crazy stories about what happened over the last Q4. But it could be commiserate, if you will. So enough with the lamenting. Let's go to something that is traditionally, and by traditionally, I mean, this year, been a pick-me-up in this show, and that is the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
So, Travis, got to tell you, some news here. I have an invention. My first invention. Yeah.
Congratulations, dude. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to selling it next Q4. It should be ready. But for those listening and for yourself, of course, just letting you know, I just invented the first thought-controlled air freshener.
A thought-controlled air freshener. Wow, that's impressive, man.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense when you think about it. And that's this week's weekly dad joke. That one was good. That
was really good.
That was
might
good.
Take a second to sink in too. You're like, it makes sense what you. Oh, I see what you did there.
Right. Exactly. See, usually for those listening, when it comes to the note making process, because we do document and make notes, usually the longest, most arduous part of that is not the research. No. It's not the note writing itself. No. It's finding the exact right dad joke for that given episode. And you might think I'm bullshitting, but I'm serious. There's been times where we spent 15 minutes just scouring.
Part of that though, part of that is just because we're just cracking each other up and just telling each other dad jokes.
Yeah, that is true.
So, I mean, there's a little bit of a benefit to that, but no, that was a good one. I liked that one.
It was good. I liked it. So let's go into, this week's point of interest.
This is Uncle Mike.
This is Aunt Jackie.
And you're listening to The Point of Interest.
Travis, you were telling me before we pressed record, you just kind of had a kind of a side offhand comment about a certain experiment, if you will, on Etsy. So why don't you tell the people as much as you want, as far as what the experiment is and the payoff of said experiment?
Yeah. So I don't know, about a month and a half ago, my production manager, who's also my son, came up to me and Tate, and he was like, "Hey, this thing happened. And I think if you put this thing on a shirt, you're going to, it's going to be crazy. It's going to sell. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. Tell me a little more. And he told me kind of what happened in the scenario. And, I'm not going to go into it, but it was basically a topical kind of trendy thing that happened in the media, and it came out, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't really have the time to like do a whole bunch of colors and a whole bunch of, variations on, but I'll throw up one color, one design on some, I don't know, 6 size variations or something like that on Etsy, and just see what happens. Turns out he was right. And you alluded to it before, Josiah. We have sold almost $1,400 of that particular shirt as of today. It turns out that you tie a trending phrase or a trending something, and it's not like "Let's Go Brandon," which there's a lot of people doing it out there. It's something kind of different. You probably could have done the same thing with that phrase, but I'm just saying, like, this is a different phrase. I just wanted to differentiate that because I think that's probably in a lot of people's minds. This was something totally different. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I have kind of kept tabs on that particular phrase and like that trend on Etsy, and I'll go search it, once a week or so, and just kind of see what else has come up there. And our product is definitely the best. It looks the coolest. It has the best mock-ups. It looks, and it actually got a bestseller badge, which I've never had a bestseller badge on Etsy. But I guess when you sell $1,400 worth of product in a month, they give that to you. Totally. So anyway, all of that to say, it really opened up my mind to like, well, how can you scale that? How can you create like systems for when something happens like that? We're going to have a shirt up, we're going to have a mug out, we're going to have a whatever. Right. And, there's some caveats to that. I mean, the first thing you need is somebody that's got their pulse on culture, and on the media and like what's going on out there. And so luckily, at least in certain areas, my son has, he's listening to things, he's hearing things. And so I'm hoping that we can like potentially make a way to kind of capitalize on that. And because of that particular product, our Etsy sales, I feel like, have even the product, like the rest of our stuff that's in our Etsy store that is not this product has had a boost sort of. Because of the velocity that this product gave us. And so our Q4 has been way, way, way better on Etsy than it ever has. And I think, because I think that whole rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing, this particular product really did help the algorithm kind of could show our stuff a little more than maybe it has in the past. So that's kind of a cool little, it really wasn't started as an experiment. It was kind of a throw the dart at the wall and see what happens. And then it turned into this like, wow, okay, well, if this is true, then this, then this, then this, maybe we can extrapolate some data and like go, okay, well, can we reproduce this? What does that look like? And it's going to give us something to kind of think about, after the craziness of Q4 in January and February and moving forward. So it's cool.
Yeah, it is awesome. And I think, that the phrase to me was when I had heard it, because I also had heard what, was going on. But it seemed pretty benign to me when he said, when it came out of the mouth of the person said it, whatever. But for your production manager, for Tate, your son, to have the foresight and the thought of like, that's a t-shirt. You know what I mean? I think that's really key, because sometimes even I'll miss that thing kind of stuff and I'll see it the next day and be like, son of a gun, that is a good t-shirt. You know what I mean?
Right.
Someone is on the pulse, but also is just constantly, thinking like, I think we could put that on an item for sale. And it is, last week, Madeline talked about kind of like that super niche is kind of taking two things that is politically and culturally relevant and combining it with a certain group of people who are interested in that niche and marrying the two together. You're taking people that are going to be on both sides and are going to be in favor in it, and you're going to get this kind of trending thing that you stumble upon, really. But the art of it is, like you said, having someone on the pulse of it. It would to me, it would be hard for that person to be a VA, especially if they're out of the country, because they might not have that same kind of finger on the pulse of American culture, just because they're not in it. So it would have to be someone that you hire, stateside, whether that's your graphic designer or whatever, but they would have to be immersed in the culture enough to know what they think would hit when it comes to an apparel item or a mug or what have you.
Yeah, I think one of the other things, when you were talking about what Madeline said about marrying those two, kind of the super niche thing, we talked about this, I don't know, months ago. I kind of gave away one of my products that really did well, not like a couple of Valentine's Days. And it was because I married Valentine's Day with a political thing. And it was the Trump wall that he was talking about building. And the coffee mug that we sold, hundreds of these coffee mugs, if not thousands of these coffee mugs. It just said, I want you on the other side or on my side of the wall. Had a little picture of Trump, had little hearts. It was very trendy at the time. That was big in the news. It was also happened to be Valentine's Day. And I think we kind of hit that with this quote, not that we married Christmas with the quote or with the product. It just happened to be Christmas. And so it's like, well, if I'm searching for something unique and cool to give, well, this is definitely unique. It's trendy. So you almost kind of get a get out of jail free card or a free pass, I guess, on trendy things. You don't necessarily need to marry them as long as they're trendy enough. You don't necessarily need to marry them with another thing if you do it during Christmas, which was interesting to me because I hadn't really thought of that, because I've always thought like Madeline, you need two things to marry. And this one just because of the timeliness of it already had number two kind of baked in.
Yeah, I think you could look at it, kind of like a triangle, right? So you can have, combining all three, whether it's political, something else, and the time of year would be the perfect scenario. But sometimes you have one of the two that marry, and the third one just happens to be during that time, which is in your case, right? It took the political thing, mixed it with another niche, and then it just happened to be during the holiday season, but that wasn't the forethought. So you can sometimes combine one or the other. All three is great, but you don't necessarily need all three for it to go off, in a good way. And what I will say, Travis, is that I certainly want you on my side of the wall. There's no question. There's a couple of people that I want on my side of the wall. You and all of the listeners of the Print on Demand cast. So, I blacked out there for a second. So anyway, that's this week's point of interest.
We're gonna get like people are gonna email us and be like, "What the hell? What was that about?"
Why did that happen? I'm canceling you. It's all you're a fake podcast. So anyway, speaking of email though, we would love to hear from you, even if it is the fact that you're unsubscribing for my Trump impression. I knew the risks. Info@printondemandcast.com. We are doing a mailbag episode. This week, we have a couple of posts from people on our Facebook group and an email from a gentleman who has a question. And we thought, honestly, guys, in complete transparency, as you've heard from Travis and I, things are nuts right now. So in complete transparency, I texted him today. I said, "Hey, I can record tonight, like at 7:30. Is there anything easy that we can cover? Because time is a hot commodity at the moment.
Yep.
And so if these episodes during the Q4 season are shorter, that's why. Because I have to be at the office at the shop again by 7:00 tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
because things are nuts. So we're going to do a mailbag episode and kind of talk about some questions that we have had.
It's a main event. Talk about your prince. We're sitting on the fence. This is a main event.
This first one is from Fiona Darcy. And before I read the question, I got to say, Fiona's posted a couple times on our Facebook group, and I know that she's listening to this. And how do I know, you ask, other listeners that aren't Fiona? I will tell you how I know that Fiona's listening, because her most recent post says she loves listening to the podcast, which is awesome. Thank you so much, Fiona. These guys are like family now. That's great. I will DM you my address for the Christmas card with the gift cards to Amazon for Travis and myself, because we're family now, and we will of course reciprocate in kind with a t-shirt. I've binge listened to all 68 episodes since finding them 6 weeks ago. I cried when I caught up with all the episodes, which I can relate, because there's a part of me as guilty pleasure / embarrassingness to say, every time I watch Friends, I don't watch the last episode, because to me they're all living in New York still. Okay, they're all still there, all 6 of them living their lives. Okay, I can empathize with you, Fiona. But she goes on to say, after she says she cried when she caught up with all the episodes, she listened to them again, a second time. We have our first, first of all, our first binge listener, I think. If you want to contest for that crown, Facebook group it up. Let us know.
Yep.
But she is a repeat binger, which sounds like the worst idea when it comes to rehab. But in this case, it's good. Then she says she can't recommend the podcast enough. You know, dad jokes, witty banter, the profession. Please, blushing. But Fiona, you're crazy. We love you, and I know you probably are listening to this episode. But thank you so much for your dedication. Travis, before I read the question, your thoughts on Fiona's just full on #1 PODcast fandomness.
I don't know who would challenge for the crown at this point. I don't know. And if somebody does want to, like you said, go to that Facebook group. I do know that Fiona also, she's actually in Australia, and she has her own pod production facility. And so that's pretty dang cool. She's like, I think she said she had 7 production or like processes that she does. And I'm like, holy crap, that's more than I have. And so, who knows, maybe someday we'll have Fiona on here, and, she can just wow us with her Australian accent for one, and all of her POD knowledge.
You're not wrong. We might have her do some bumpers in her Australian accent just to get that, like, I'm not even getting, Australian is the one dialect that I really can't do. And so I'm not going to insult our top listener by trying and just butchering the beauty of the Australian accent.
Fair enough.
Yes. So But Fiona posted a second time, or her first post, asking about a certain software platform. Halfway through the post, she says, I recall Travis and Josiah talking about a program/platform they use to set customers up with their own stores, etc. I would absolutely love some recommendations on where to start. Pretty please. She's also polite. Pretty please. No one says that anymore. Bonus. In Australia, we mainly have the big guys for POD. However, they lack in customer service and product quality. So we are being inundated with inquiries. I have used Deco Network in the past, but I'm looking for something better suited to setting up online stores for customers, which we can manage from the back end, etc. Thank you for listening to my long question. I really appreciate any help you can give. Kind regards, Fiona. So, Travis, she mentioned Deco Network in the post, so I will let you answer first with what you guys are kind of looking at, and then I'll kind of follow up with my experience using Deco Network.
Yeah, we did do an entire episode on Deco Network. Josiah, I want you to listen or look that up while you're waiting, but so we know what episode we can point people to. But so I have watched you guys use Deco Network in this very way that she's talking about, like creating stores for your customers and basically allowing your customers to have their own place online. And you can even like make it their URL even, which is really cool. And so there's like, I've seen you guys do this, and you have, I think, over 100 stores with clients that you guys have set up over the time that you've been on Deco Network. And so it's, to me, it's like an exact fit for what Fiona wants to do. For us, what we did, we basically wanted to have that functionality for ourselves, for some of our clients. But really the impetus for us was more about like doing local orders and having the ability to quote local orders to people. And, hey, there's this company and they want, 100, embroidered caps, and, 200 hoodies and 400 shirts or whatever it is. So they were, this whole thing, that was really the impetus for us to have that ability, because one of the cool things about the solution we went with, which is Inksoft, was it had this incredible back end that could do both kind of that local quoting and all of that stuff. And then it could also do the stores, which I'm still interested in. I think the difference for us is that we just got into it probably 4 months ago, I think maybe, or something like that. We have used it a lot for local, and we've sold, several, lots and lots of thousands of dollars worth of product for local. We have not yet started a store. Part of that is because we just haven't made the time. That's like a kind of a 2022 thing. We actually have one of our clients that is a local guy that that we've sold a lot of stuff to, and he's like, hey, can you just put all the stuff we've bought from you just in a store so I can get it whenever? And I'm like, yes, we can do that, but not right now. Let's wait till 20. Yeah, it's coming soon. So we will be creating our first e-commerce store in 2022. Nice. So we're using Inksoft for that reason. So we kind of have both of those, things covered. I personally, the reason I didn't go with Deco Network, even though I have a friend that uses it, I didn't like the store as well. I thought the user interface and actually like the customer like facing site just looked better to me with Inksoft. And then there was a couple of things that as I talked to Josiah and picked his brain over and over, he was like, well, this is what I don't like about Inksoft. This is what I like. And I specifically went to Inksoft and said, or he said about Deco Network, I specifically went to Inksoft and said, well, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? And they answered all of these things in the positive. And so I was like, well, they do all these things. And then there was one hiccup with Inksoft, which was about giving your customers access to their store, like limited access to where they could load the things up and all that. And about the time we were ready to make a decision, Inksoft said, hey, we're going to give you the ability to grant admin access to your customers. And I was like, all right, well, that's it. We were already leaning that way. And that kind of just pushed it all over. So anyway, that's why we went with Inksoft. I'm curious to hear your answer to the question, Josiah, about Deco Network.
Yeah, well, I'll first say that I'm going to go ahead and just take credit for those user permissions happening at Inksoft because I badgered those people. I made them feel very inadequate for not having user permissions when I was on the phone with them. And I'll get to that kind of at the end of my dissertation here. Buckle in. No, but we used... we found Deco Network, and we found Inksoft as well. I think I heard about Inksoft maybe at the first SGIA when we were in Vegas together. Maybe I remember talking to, his name is John Cantu, I believe, was the guy that we talked to there, and he kind of showed us the functionality of it. And walking away from that, I thought, well, that's probably it, right? Like that's what we want. But at the time, they didn't have the user permissions, which was huge because when we started, we had a Squarespace store, and I love Squarespace. They've come a long way as well as far as their e-commerce functionality. And I would recommend Squarespace to anybody, especially if someone's kind of wanting a more well-rounded site that has kind of like maybe blog posts and, different page functionalities. Squarespace is a lot better, in my opinion, than Shopify when it comes to that. And they've upped their e-commerce game. But when we first started, we were doing Squarespace stores. And you can, of course, do individual pages on Squarespace, and they each have their own URL slug. So it's willforapparel.com/print-on-demand-cast, for example. But the bad thing about that was that I specifically, personally, was in charge of listing every item, every variation, every mock-up, it was enormously overwhelming. And so I wanted to offload that and make it their responsibility.
If you actually look at Fiona's Facebook post, that's actually what she's been doing. She has been doing that with Shopify, which is another incredible platform that you can do.
Yeah.
But she has been basically taking their store and then doing the / print on demand cast or whatever. So she's in your same shoes,
Sure. Yeah. And I know she said she mentioned Deco Network or she used Deco Network in the past, looking for something better suited to letting us set up stores for customers, which can manage from the back end. Fiona, that's exactly what we do with Deco. So I'd be interested to hear your experience with Deco, what you tried to do, because that is literally, we probably have, I can probably look it up right now, but we probably easily have over 300 stores on Deco Network that are active, that are functional, that are working. The reason Deco Network was so appealing was because of the user access. So each customer signs up for their store. They get this unique login credentials, and then they can go in and select products to sell that we have already made available for them with the set predetermined wholesale price, right? So, if they want to sell a mug, it's, a 15-ounce mug is $11. So then they get to put their art on it, and then they get to list it for sale and market up whatever they want to their customer. And it's completely dependent on them to do that. So we don't touch that anymore. So their stuff, it was really crazy to go from the transition, because initially doing the Squarespace thing, I was personally overseeing everything that made it to any store. So when Deco hit, seeing stuff that I had no idea existed was interesting. I mean, to this day, there's stuff that we'll print and be like, whose is that? I don't know. Let's look at, oh yeah, never seen that before in my life, but they sold it. So ship it off. So that is what we're using Deco Network for. And it's worked really well for us. The downside, I will say, as I've told Travis, and you, the listener, doesn't have to repeatedly ask me what I don't like about Deco like Travis had to. I'll just come out and tell you. The decoration processes are a little limited. So like with laser, for example, or UV, they don't have a preset decoration process for you. Right. So then you have to add a custom product, and that is an entirely different workaround that I have figured out through much trial and error, but it's not fun. It's certainly not easy necessarily.
The other thing that I noticed on Deco is that they only give you 6 total decoration methods on, and on Inksoft it's unlimited. So that was for us. I was like, well, we can't expand at that point with Deco to other decoration methods,
right?
With Deco. So with Inksoft, we were able to do that. So I just want to point that out too.
Yeah. So I'm actually, as we're talking here, I'm logging into the back end of our store or of our Deco Network account, because I want to say that the decoration processes are limited to printing, DTG, screen printing, sublimation, embroidery, rhinestone, which we all know how in demand that is. Come on, Deco. And listen, I have no problem calling them out because I've also badgered their customer service team quite a bit. So DTG, screen printing transfer is a print process you can use, but that's it. After that, you can't really add, or like Travis said, Inksoft you can add. So that's a win for Inksoft. Travis, you're also correct in your observation that the stores themselves are a lot more, for lack of a better term, sexy, right? They're appealing to the user, to the eye. They're a lot nicer to me, I think. I haven't gotten into the back end of Inksoft.
On Inksoft is what you're saying. They're sexy on Inksoft.
Yes. They're much more appealing to the eye. I like the way they look.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into the back end of Inksoft to tell you whether it's easier or harder to create the online store, which maybe when you guys make your first online store, I can just come over to your shop or see if I can break it. I'm really interested to see the back end of their store, basically is what I'm saying to you, or their setup. So I like that a lot as well. The integration with catalogs is nice. I think not TSC, but Sanmar is able to integrate with a lot more catalogs, including TSC as well. So depending on who your supplier is, you can just import their entire catalog instead of having to add it manually. So Deco Network's been great for us. We are kind of looking, at Inksoft, especially with the user permissions. I had talked to the customer service guys at Inksoft, and they're kind of giving us a tour. And I asked about user permissions, and they said, no, we don't have that. And I said, well, then you can't really call yourself an apples to apples comparison to Deco Network, because that was our whole thing. It's like, oh, we're apples to apples comparison. And I was very, very direct in saying, well, that's a lie, because at this point, if you had that, we'd switch, but you don't.
Right.
So we can't. So either add that or don't call yourselves an apple to apple comparison. It can't be that hard. Deco Network's doing it. So, all of that to say, Fiona, I don't know that there is necessarily a wrong answer for you, but if, like Travis said, you have that many print processes happening at any given time in your production shop there in Australia, Inksoft might be the better solution for you. And like I said, I love everything about them, and I want to revisit this thing with the user permissions happening. So I might find myself at Make Your Mark Design around January 2, just to see what's happening with Inksoft.
Fair enough. Well, that's Fiona. Thanks for writing that question in. Really appreciate
thank you
that.
so much.
We enjoy kind of geeking out on some of this stuff because we go really deep and like down the rabbit hole, with some of these software solutions and things like that. And there are other solutions out there as well, but I know there's Printavo is another, but it's more of a shop management tool that has a store / I think they call it merch functionality. That may be something that you'd want to look into as well. Those are kind of, to me, those are the three bigs: Deco Network, Inksoft, Printavo, for both print shop management, inventory management, even in some different ways. It's harder for print on demand for obvious reasons. And then they also all have kind of this merch or store functionality that they're adding in. Yeah, and there's probably more out there. In fact, I'm confident that there's a lot more out there that I just haven't had the time or reason to really explore.
To explore, right? But I will say before we move on to the next question, because I've looked at a lot of solutions, because just looking at what else is out there, because
Mhm.
another I guess you call it pro tip, right? Even though you have a solution, doesn't mean you should be married to it. Maybe look out there, see what's better,
Yeah.
see pricing wise, feature wise, see what makes the best sense for you. But in my searchings and Jason and I's kind of endeavor to find something that is an equivalent, the user permission stuff is huge for us. And Fiona, it sounds like it is for you as well. So there is a lot out there that didn't have that component,
Yeah.
where everything else was awesome, but without that, it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. You have to do everything. You have to create everything. And so, for some people, that's fine. They're fine because they're only going after people that have 4 designs total, and they only want them on t-shirts or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's very, very simple. It's very kind of cookie cutter. So that may make sense for you, but for you guys, obviously didn't. And I don't think it's going to for us either.
Yeah, they could have used. I mean, people could use VAs for that process too. If they're doing everything yourself, there is a way to craft a workflow and a system that will work for you on those platforms. So by no means write off any of these solutions that we're mentioning, or just because they don't use permissions, it might work great for you. But just check it out and see what you think. So moving on to question number 2, Travis. This is from your guy. One of your friends reached out, asked us a question. Chris Pepke, which we actually, for full disclosure, we had to ask him how to pronounce his last name because it's spelled Pueppke. And to me, that'd be Pepke, but it's Pepke. So tell us, man, question 2, hit us with it. Let's hear it.
Chris is actually smiling right now. I know he is. So he's laughing at me.
I hope so.
Silently.
I don't know, Chris. I don't know you. No disrespect by butchering the last name. That's why we reached out for it. And we actually have it phonetically spelled on our notes. So, because I didn't want to get it wrong.
So he had kind of 2 questions. And we're already at the 40-minute mark on this thing. So
remember that time I said these episodes would be shorter?
Yeah. I do remember that. But maybe we'll go a little quicker through these 2. But basically, he was asking, he asked 2 questions. The first one was really about custom order workflow and how do we handle custom orders and what is our workflow for that? And then the second was he asked about automation for creating mock-ups. And I know Chris has like some really great automation tools himself for creating mockups. And in fact, I was actually, talking to him about coming on the podcast maybe and sharing some of that in the future someday. But I do have a couple of answers for these two questions. The first one being the custom order workflow. Full disclosure, we hardly do any custom, but basically what we do for custom orders is going to be, so we have every order from all of our different channels, from all of our different clients, customers that use us as a fulfillment partner. It all goes into Orderdesk, and we've talked about Orderdesk in the past. And then there are a certain set of rules and things that happen when an order hits that particular shop inside of Orderdesk. And so if our customers, or if we have an order that if we have a customer that has like a lot of custom, what we will do is we will set it to not actually auto push to ShipStation before the customer themselves says, hey, the order is ready. The art is actually ready. Because what happens with a custom order is like, hey, I want to buy this thing, but I want it to say John, or whatever. And so you have to create that art in the meantime before that actually goes to your print partner. And so what we do is in Orderdesk, it sits in a new folder. Basically, it's just a folder and it's new. And when you have created the art for that custom, item, you push it to the ready to the next folder, which is, what is it? Is it ready to ship or ready for production? I can't even remember. Let me just look it up here. Oh, it's ready to print. So, and then once it's in the ready to print file, that's when it automatically at a certain time every day, we push all of the ready to print to ShipStation, and then it goes to in print queue until it actually ships. And then once it actually ships, it goes out of the in print queue into the shipped folder. And so it just kind of trickles down. So if you don't have any custom orders and you're using, our facility, it would just automatically go into the ready to print folder when it sells, because it doesn't have to be manipulated in any way. So that's how we handle it. It's the same for we do have a couple of Etsy things that, actually, I think they're on Walmart, but our VA basically just handles all of those and gets all of the data and creates the print files and then puts them in the ready to print folder once she's completed that art for that particular order. Do you guys do much custom, or how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so we have a couple clients on Etsy, Madeline included, that do some custom art files, but then they're all linked to a ShipStation. But because I think all of them are on Etsy. If they're on Deco does have the option where you can add a field where personalization if applicable, and then we have our VA catch that, create it, put it in the Dropbox folder, and notify us when it's there, so then we can process it. But when it comes to let's see, there's I think there's 3 or 4 total. They will, because they have access to the ShipStation, they have access to their Etsy sale, back end. They will create the art when they see the order come through, drop it in the Dropbox, and title it after the name of the person that ordered it. So when we go to print it, it's already there in their folder. Dropbox is how we do a lot of our file organization and for our clients in the first place. So they'll just add a custom folder. They'll see the sale come through, create it, drop it in there, and then it's usually ready to go by the time we go to print. So that's kind of the system we've developed, just because they have access to the back end of all that stuff too, so they can see it usually before we do. So they catch it. Usually happens a lot faster. So I was going to ask you, how long is the wait time, or is there any, when you push it from order desk to ShipStation? It's
instantaneous.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
It just automatically pushes it to ShipStation right then. And because you actually, in Order Desk, you have a ShipStation integration that you set up. And so it's API, it's immediate. So as soon as you move, you can manually push an order to ShipStation, or the way we have it is once a day, it actually creates a spreadsheet of all the orders with all of the links to all of the art that is, in any manual, any other things, order notes, any of that stuff.
Sure.
That email with that spreadsheet goes to our VA at 10 o'clock at night, and she's in the Philippines. And so she works on that all night and creates those print files for us based on those spreadsheets. And then the next day we come in and all of our art is ready, and our all those orders are already in ShipStation, and she tags them, which ones she's actually, are print ready. And so we know which ones are, correspond with our print files. We know which orders are corresponding in ShipStation. So it works out really well, since she's working, basically the other 12 hours of the day.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, Chris, I hope that is helpful to you. Oh, mock-up generation automation. Yeah. Travis, talk a little bit about that, because your solution is very similar to my solution, and I'll just kind of throw in what isn't in our solution compared to yours. But mock-up generation automation, how do you crank out multiple mock-ups in one fell swoop?
Yeah, and I know Chris, this is kind of a setup for Chris, because he has a really cool solution that he's been trying to get me to listen to.
Chris.
Come on the podcast, Chris. Who said that? Did you hear that? Did you hear something?
I
heard
I
something.
blocked out again. I don't know.
But so we, for the longest time, were doing all of our mock-ups manually. We would, use a kind of a combination of placeit.net amalgamation of placeit.net and, Photoshop mockups that we would, kind of create on our own, and just all of these different things to just do all of these different mockups. Recently we found an incredible tool, and it's it's a plugin for Photoshop. And what it does, it basically, it's called mockup. What is it called? Bulk mockup. That's what it's called. And I think it's like bulk mockup.net or bulk.com or something, but it's not like a website where you have to like put something into it and then it does its thing on the web and then pulls it down. This is actually inside of your Photoshop. So you get like a license, I think one license per thing or whatever. It's only like $50, $30, $40. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But basically what it does is you have to set up two folders. You have to set up the smart object folder and then the art folder, and then it'll create an output folder. And so you can have like, the cool thing about it is that it actually uses smart objects. So you can go to like Creative Market and different places on the web or you can even make them yourself, to where like I have like a coffee mug and it has a smart object that kind of bends around that coffee mug. So any art that I want to put on a coffee mug, I put into that smart object, and then it kind of warps it around that. It's really cool. Right. It looks more realistic. I personally think it sells better because it looks more realistic and it looks like a quality mock-up. And you can do that with, a lot of different things, but there's a lot of people that sell mock-ups even on Etsy that have smart objects. So you can put like a smart object, and then you can put 50 things in this other folder that are the art, and then it'll literally make 50 mock-ups and put them in the output folder. Right. And you can do multiple smart objects at the same time. So you could put 10 smart object back, like mock-up things that you want, 50 different art images, and it'll literally do number one 50 times. Then it'll do number two 50 times. Now it is taking up computer resources. You have to have a computer open with Photoshop open during that time. It's not automated in the cloud or anything like that. But overall, we've actually bought licenses for myself, and then 3 other people on our staff, and it has revolutionized our mock-up creation. It's amazing how many mock-ups we can get now and how quickly we can get them with this one tool. So that's one way to do it. Josiah, I know you guys use a different way. Why don't you tell them about that?
Ours is very similar. It's bulk mock-up generator. One word difference. But the difference is that it doesn't have the smart, like Travis said, the smart object capability, and it's a web-based thing. So if you don't have Photoshop, this could be a good solution for you as well. But you can have the blank mock-up that you want to use. I think they have some provided as well for you. And then you drop the design. It opens up the mock-up, the blank. You drop the design on it one time. You hit go, and it places it on all of the T-shirts and hoodies and stuff that you have in one click of a button. So you can do 50, 100 mock-ups at once. And then do the mugs, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think I haven't used it a whole lot. I've used it once or twice. Jason uses it a lot more. Maybe we get him on the podcast soon too. Hello. So
come on the podcast, Jason.
Come on the podcast. It's freaking windy in here. So anyway, but like the DTG thing, and then the mugs as well, or sublimation. So, but it has done the same thing to where we used to, again, a smorgasbord of mock-up generation between Printful and Placeit and all of these different places. But this has definitely helped, because if we have a new design, we want to get it on the set on multiple mock-ups at once. That's it. You're done. It's very, very quick. So that hopefully, Chris, and I know again, it's a setup. You can come on and talk about what is it? What is it, Travis? His
Cloudinary. He uses Cloudinary.
Yeah. See, it sounds fake, Chris. You have to come and convince me that it's real. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying. Come on the show. Convince me that it's real. So that's it for question number 2. Question number 3, emailed to us, which is refreshing almost. We don't get a whole lot of email action, But this gentleman, Eric Talbot, definitely changed the game a little bit by emailing us. Again, info@printondemandcast.com. I say every week, if social media is not your thing, and then I throw it out there. Eric took us up on it. So thank you, Eric. His question is as follows. I'm really worried about shipping times. Sorry. I keep thinking in my head that there's like this music bed underneath. It's makes it very sentimental. But that's probably not good. Like, you know how Jimmy Fallon, when he writes his notes, is like that piano thing?
Yes. There's a piano thing. Yeah.
Yes.
We don't have any backup singers or band or anything like that.
There's a piano right over there, but no one's playing it. So anyway, I'm really worried about shipping times this time of year. I keep getting conflicting reports about how long shipping carriers are taking to get the items delivered. I don't want my metrics to take a hit. So, what are your best suggestions for handling late deliveries around the holidays? This is a very real thing. Travis, you and I have talked about it. Because especially in the holidays, things are going to be backed up. And this year especially, it seems like multiple things layered here that would result in delays. But Travis, I know you have a pretty quick, easy solution that you shared with me, because I came to you almost with this same question. Eric, I need you to stop listening in on our conversations. But tell the people, Travis, what do you do when someone says, hey, man, where's my crap? Or, hey, this says it's delivered. It's not delivered. I don't have it. What's going on? When's it going to get here? So on and so forth. What do you do?
Well, Josiah, have you ever you've flown in planes, because we've been on a lot of trips together, and that little card that you get in the back, and you know how it tells you to like put your head between your legs and just basically crash.
Yeah, no.
Yes, that's kind of similar to to what no, it's not actually similar at all.
You tell the customer
it feels like that. No, I don't tell the customer that.
I know your shirt's not here, but if you would just lean forward, put your head.
Obviously, I'm joking, but at the same time, there is a little bit of seriousness to that in the fact that you're gonna freaking have late deliveries. That's just, it is inevitable that there is going to be a delay. Some of your products may not actually reach the final destination. I mean, we're shipping hundreds and hundreds of products every single day. Inevitably, a small percentage of those are going to get hung up in the mail or lost, or, there's a myriad of things that can happen to your product. So what do you do when that happens? Well, in the past, I remember I used to get because I came from the FBA world, and Amazon handles all of your issues,
customer service.
So you don't have to deal with it. So when I first got into the merchant fulfilled stuff, and when I was actually dealing with the customers, I would just get so cynical, and I'd be like, oh, whatever, that didn't get lost. You're lying. That mug wasn't broken. You just want a second one.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, I think where you really need to come to is a customer service mindset, and be like, you know what? I don't care if you're lying to me. It's not worth my time to A, worry about it, or B, try to make you prove it. What I need to do is just say, we are going to serve you the best possible way we can. We're going to get you a product back right out to you. So sorry about the inconvenience. The bottom line, and I think the thing that you're maybe alluding to, is that I do have some templates that I've created that basically say, hey, the customer says, hey, I haven't found this, or this says it's delivered. The tracking says it's delivered, but I didn't get it. I have this thing that says basically, hey, the tracking says this, it was delivered at this time to this place, and this, blah, blah, blah. Please check your order information. Check your address. It has a place for their address, and I'm copying and pasting these different things. And then, I go to the tracking, I copy the delivered at and where, I paste that in. I copy the customer's address, I paste that in. Then I copy the actual tracking information. And then at the bottom, it says, if you still haven't found your product, here are some things that you can do. Check with your neighbors, blah, blah, blah. If you're in an apartment complex, check with your manager, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it has like all of these kind of things. And then if that hasn't worked, please contact us for, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
More blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, 50% of those emails never come back to me again. Like they find it or whatever. And then I'll say another 10 to 20% actually do email back and they say, "Oh my gosh, my neighbor had it."
Sure.
"Oh, so thanks so much, blah, blah, blah." So that's one way to handle kind of the, hey, tracking says it's delivered, but I haven't seen it.
Right.
But at the same time, there are porch pirates. That is a real thing. And
that's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
unfortunately.
So there may be times when you still have to like send a second product out, and that's just part of doing business. Every single retail store in the world has a thing called spoilage, or and it's based shrinkage. So that's part of that. That's just part of doing retail business, is that you're going to have, quote unquote theft, quote unquote loss, and all of those things. And you just have to kind of deal with it. What do you guys do when a customer, is trying to figure out where their product is, or maybe they get a broken product or they don't like it? Or,
Sure.
He's specifically talking about, he's specifically talking about this time of year and getting stuff by Christmas. How do you handle that question? Am I going to get this in time?
Yeah. So a lot of it is, I think we sent out an email to all of our partners, as far as people that we fulfill for, and said, hey, if you want your customers to get it by Christmas, here's the date that you need to communicate to them to order by. And then we can, do our best. Typically, it was this week. It was today. Tell them to order by this date, and we can get it out by the end of the week and be there by Christmas, barring any kind of delivery or, carrier issues.
Snafu.
Yes, exactly. So we tried to manage, expectations there with our partners. With, the people on Amazon and Walmart, who we probably get 3 or 4 emails a day, like, hey man, where's my thing? Blah, 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 blah. We will, send them the tracking information that we have, tell them kind of the same thing. We don't have a template, but hey, check with your neighbor, check with what have you, and then let us know if you haven't still found it, and then we'll go from there. Sometimes we'll just kind of like, hey, we'll send you a replacement, just because it's kind of easier just to send them the replacement, and like you said, shrinkage. That's what it is. And we have experienced this year. I don't know about you guys, but this year seems to be an uptick in that kind of a scenario where we've had a lot of instances with our both of our fulfillment partners and Amazon and Walmart and Etsy, an uptick in people being like, hey, this says it's delivered, but it's not. Or, hey, UPS says that they're going to update the tracking soon, but I also got a shipping notification on the 8th. And we're like, we sent it on the 8th, so I don't really know where this is in transit. Sometimes it's easier just to say, hey, we'll send you a replacement, because it results in a happier customer. They feel like you're resolving the issue immediately. You kind of eat that cost, but at the end of the day, the happy customers they'll come back and they'll purchase again. So that's what we do. We don't have anything as automated as template or copy and paste. But I will say, though, it's interesting. There is a lot of instances where I have to reach out to people because they don't enter the correct address information, or it's incomplete, or ShipStation can't validate it. And it's shocking to me when people place orders that they don't put the right address information. It's almost like they don't want it to throw money away. So that's what we do to help with that. But at the end of the day, stuff like that's going to happen, especially during Q4. There's going to be weird, seemingly anomalies where you sent it didn't show up. It's inevitable, and it seems to happen. It increases in Q4.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you have to manage customer expectations when it comes to that. There's the, hey, it says it's delivered and it's not here. That's a whole different thing. And maybe, Eric, you were asking more about like, well, what do I do if it's after Christmas, and they didn't get it in time?
Right.
And that's kind of a different thing, but at the same time, I think to your point about emailing all of your clients, you have to manage your customer expectations and say, hey guys, USPS this is the busiest time of year for them. We got it out in a timely manner. And whether or not they fulfilled their end of the bargain is a whole nother deal. We are happy to give you an immediate refund or send it out again if you would like us to. You just let us know, and you try to, on the front end, you try to manage the expectation. If someone said, hey, am I going to get this by Christmas? We will ship it out in time for the delivery service to deliver it to you by Christmas. If you order it by this date. We cannot guarantee that because we are not the delivery service, and they are inundated with stuff. So with that being said, would you like to cancel this order before we send it? That's a possibility too. So there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate against that. And this honestly coming out Wednesday, the December 15th is probably too late. This is like terrible timing for us. We should have done this weeks ago. But that's really the idea, is just kind of managing your customers' expectations before, and then afterwards, just trying to make them a happy customer, because it's really not worth your time or your stress to fight with your customers at the end of the day. I have fought with a lot of customers in the past, and it was just stupid. I was just not, I just wasn't as smart as I am now.
That's right. It's all hindsight, man. I just wish they would change it from hindsight 2020, because that year just kind of ruined that saying for me. It's all, hindsight is mow bed up. I don't know. Change it. I don't care what it is. Anyway, that is it for the mailbag episode. Thank you so much to Eric and Chris and Fiona for providing us with the questions. You didn't know you were doing that, but you done it. So thank you guys so much for doing that. Travis and I are very grateful for the interaction. As always, if you want to get on the action, if you want to ask a question, the Facebook group is where you go to do that. So if you go to facebook.com and you search Print on Demand Cast, we're there. I would say printondemandcast.com/Facebook, but the link doesn't work at the moment, which is a whole other ball of wax.
It sure is.
But it has something to do with malware, and the link is broken. So if you go to facebook.com and just search Print on Demand Cast, or you can go to facebook.com/groups/Print on Demand Cast, and you can get in on the conversation. Also, before I continue with my diatribe that always closes the end of every podcast, that you at home could also repeat with me, episode 13, Fiona, is the episode where we talk about Deco Network in depth. So go avail
Let's do it a third time.
Yes, let's do it a third time. My goodness. Yes, a third time, episode 13. So that's where you probably already knew that, but that's where you could go to listen to that as well. So for the rest of you, if you want to listen to episode 13, you know where to do it, because wherever there's podcasts, the PODcast is there for you. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Anchor.fm, wherever you get your podcasts, there we are, to inform you, to educate you, to entertain you, and to give you all the latest in dad jokes. But if you're listening to the Apple Podcast app, that is the only platform so far that I know of that you can leave a review, and we would greatly appreciate it if you did that. 5 stars, of course, but you can also let us know, give us feedback, what you're thinking of the show, what you'd like to hear, anything there. As long as it's 5 stars, you can say anything in that comment, and we will accept it wholesale. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and we look forward to being back here next week. Travis, anything else before we wrap this up? Send it home.
Appreciate y'all. See you. Happy holidays. My goodness.
Yeah, exactly. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. We'll be. I think we'll probably be back at him before Christmas.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, let's see. 15th is the 22nd.
You'll hear from us. Maybe we'll just go in depth through our personal Christmas lists and then list our Venmo accounts. I'm just kidding. It probably won't happen. So we'll give you our wish lists and the retail prices associated and our Venmo.
Sounds great. That's a fantastic episode.
Great episode. Yeah, I'm so excited to bring that all to you, and I'm sure you all are waited with bated breath. So anyway, until next week, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand Cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.